Well, Mr. Farwharton,
Well, Mr. Savage, the Savage G.
we just finished off a live recording.
Yes.
With our I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. They're our friends. I'm going to say
They're our friends, yeah. Friends of the show.
Yeah.
By the
friends of
way,
the show.
aren't all recordings live?
That's a philosophical question that I'll need to try and delve deeper into later.
Can I ask you a second philosophical question? Because it was one posed when we began recording, or just prior to recording with Politics Over Coffee, our friends.
Our friends.
Yes, I had to go and tell my family to be quiet, and my daughter posed a philosophical question to me about the cat.
Yeah.
The philosophical question, which I now pose to you, Greg, is: does our cat have 2 arms and 2 legs, or 4 legs?
4 legs.
Why?
Because an arm is different.
Yeah.
An arm, I would argue, is it generally has an appendage on the end, which is used for gripping or for writing, and usually used for walking on.
Yeah. Unlike legs.
Unlike legs, which are there for
Looking
running.
good. Yeah, I
Definitely
agree.
my legs.
My legs especially as well.
For
For looking good.
I think we should just film our legs for the podcast.
Well, I've absolutely got legs for TV.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't
I've
know
got
if I'm
great
happy
legs.
with my legs. I don't know if I'm happy with my legs.
Yeah, you should see my legs, Greg. I've got great legs.
I think I'm happy with my legs when I have been exercising for a period.
Yeah. 6 weeks.
But no, at the moment, I don't know if I'm happy with my legs.
No, I'm very happy with my legs. People compliment my legs.
Do they?
Yeah, they say nice legs.
Nice legs, Jake.
Yeah.
Look, there's
and I
Jake.
say, duh.
There's Jake Nice Legs.
Yeah, it is actually my nickname. Nice legs, Jake. Actually,
okay. I'm
it's
nice
really
arms,
poignant,
Greg.
because when I've also got nice arms, but my legs are better. But yeah, it's quite interesting because I my social circle also we have two Jakes, and I'm known as Nice Legs Jake, and he's known as Nice Personality Jake.
Right.
Which means that he has just awful looks.
But I can be
You'll know
nice.
it.
I can be nice arms, Greg. That's
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, you could be.
Well, I've got nice arms. That's why. So when we recorded with the Politics Over Coffee boys, Gareth and Ollie, lovely conversation. And I had my jacket on, and I thought, well, I better take it off for this one, so that there's some.
You were a nice jacket, Greg.
Yeah, at some. I need to make some differentiation between that recording and this recording.
Yeah.
So I made myself a little uglier, and just wearing an unironed Levi's t-shirt. Big sponsors of the show.
Big sponsors. Huge sponsors.
Huge. Probably our biggest sponsor, I would say.
I would say second biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
behind microphones.
Behind your legs. Now, Jake, we better get into it. We are the Pouch podcast, and we deal with Australian news and politics.
Yeah, not so seriously though.
That's right. Not so seriously. We like to take We like to take this opportunity just to debrief about what's happening in Australian politics, and throughout the week, we're going to start with a recording of their introduction, which is always riveting. Always riveting.
Yep.
So, this is it now, Jake. Are you ready for the introduction?
Yes.
That's good. It just gave me a minute to gather my thoughts. Now, if you are listening on Facebook and you'd like to join the conversation, you can punch in a comment and we can bring that up on the screen, and we can also discuss said comment if you would like to. Hello and welcome to The Pouch, the soggy potato chip of podcast that aims to help the average Aussie try and make sense of their current news and political environment. I'm Greg. Gosh, I wish I had my jacket on, Savage.
And I'm Jake. I hear the South China Sea is beautiful this time of year, Farwharton. On today's episode, we talk people in the South China Sea. maybe us. We also talk employment deficits. Play on words, not really. And we also talk about the opinion of politicians on other politicians.
Excellent. Sounds very, very great, Jake. I'm really looking forward to all of that. Now, Jake, while we're as snug as a bug in this proverbial rug, I would love to know. Gosh, this is the problem with not having a script ready, isn't it, Jake?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, that was funny.
Dear me. We'll keep that in. If we think of something later on, we'll add that in. We'll add that one in. Now, Jake, I want to start today by talking about something that's interested me for many, many years. Well, at least, in my older mind, I actually thought that this had only interested me for some years. But apparently this has been going on for 10 years, according to this article by the ABC News. And it says, Australia wins landmark World Trade Organization ruling on tobacco plain packaging laws. Now, this has fascinated me for ages. I've always thought that this was quite an interesting idea. The idea being that when I was younger, my mum actually used to write a note for me to go down to the local service station, and it used to say, Greg is able to buy me a packet of Winfield Red or Winfield Blue, whatever she smoked. And, there was an identifying feature on that packet. I remember it clearly, the V with the blue lines, and it was very clear, like it was a logo that really stuck in your mind. Then you had like Benson and Hedges. I mean, gosh, I was alive in the time when we had Benson and Hedges World Series. Like cigarettes were sponsoring cricket competitions. And then the government decided that they were going to try and put into place this idea that there wasn't going to be any identifiable feature on cigarette packets. So it was just going to be what they called plain packaging. Now, given this tremendously horrific eye that is being pried open on this packet, I would argue not so plain.
Yeah.
But I think they started by actually advertising. You weren't allowed to advertise like how strong the cigarette was. You couldn't call them lights. That's right. You couldn't say that this was a light version of a cigarette
because it was a phased implementation. That's right.
Yeah. Because it gave the impression that you could smoke this and maybe not get as much cancer.
Have fewer of the cancers, fewer of the passive effects.
When in actuality you were still just breathing in so much of that particular chemical. Now, anyway, back to this one. So Australia has won a clear victory in a major trade dispute over its pioneering tobacco packaging law, with a panel of judges at the World Trade Organization rejecting arguments brought by Cuba, Indonesia, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, who are major producers of cigarettes, and I suppose their challenge is that there is not enough competition in the market in Australia, and as a consequence, people aren't choosing one product over another, and as a consequence of that, perhaps they're buying less. Certainly, the argument that people are buying less in Australia cigarettes since plain packaging came in, it's something like 200 million packets of cigarettes less per year. Compared with plain packaging laws.
So we can argue that people are smoking less in Australia.
Yeah,
Is that right?
mean, so we can't necessarily directly attribute it to plain packaging laws, although they seem to have been at the time, very successful, because in years subsequent to the plain packaging laws, we've also seen the introduction of vaping, and
yes.
The introduction of more effective means of whatever it's smoking cessation types of programs and gums and patches and various other things. But certainly the prevalence of vaping has been a major thing to come in since the introduction of plain packaging laws. So whether you can point directly to the plain packaging and suggest that it was that reduced the number of people purchasing cigarettes, I'm not sure that that's a claim that is backed up by the evidence, but certainly many more people have not been smoking, and many people have quit smoking since the introduction of those laws.
Okay, well, that's really, really good news, I suppose. Vaping seems to have put a bit of a dampener on that. Now, the interesting, one of the interesting points about this particular article is that it says that it opens up, I suppose because it's from the World Health Organization, this particular ruling, that it has opened up the idea that other countries can now roll out similar laws. So there we go, pioneering the way in cigarette brand loyalty.
Yeah,
or lack thereof.
It was really interesting, and the plain packaging laws was one of the landmark policies that Julia Gillard and the Gillard government brought in in 2011. This is in fact during a time when she was managing a minority government, so she did not have the ability to rule on her own, via the seats of her own government. So she had to negotiate with other minor political parties such as the Greens and independents in order to make such laws, but particularly effective, and again, regardless of whether it was the impact of vaping or the impact of plain packaging laws, it seems to have done an incredible thing to reduce the number of people smoking in Australia, or at least smoking cigarettes.
Yes. Yeah, look, my 5-year-old daughter, she's not into it.
Not into smoking?
No. She thought she might give that a miss.
5-year-olds, I mean, they try to start targeting them around 6. So it makes sense that she'd be a little bit against it at 5. Give her a year.
Yeah, look, we'll try again next year.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Yeah. Just give her a note. Send her down the corner store.
If that's a sign of future generations, Jake, then that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
It really is. The thing is, I make no real secret of my antipathy towards smoking in general. Not necessarily smokers. I am a former smoker. From sort of however old my daughter is plus 1 year.
From minutes ago.
Just had my last one. But the outcome is essentially a whole range of health comorbidities, health complications, etc., that end up becoming a massive drain on the public purse. Lung cancer, mouth cancer, throat cancer, esophageal cancer, cardiovascular disease. There's a huge range of comorbidities that occur as a direct result of smoking. So the more I suppose guns in our arsenal that we can produce in opposition to smoking is I think it's a great thing.
Well, it's just one of the ways that we're pioneering our we're leading the way, Jake, in having plain packaging around the world. Now, speaking of around the world, Jake, our who are we talking about here? We've got is it our army? Is it our
It's our navy.
Our navy. So our navy were heading into China. Heading
over to we were heading over to have joint exercises with Japan and the US.
Right.
And,
this is naval exercises.
Yes, indeed. And as we were traversing the Pacific, we crossed through the South China Sea, and there are a group of islands off the South China Sea that China have for the last little while been claiming sovereignty over, and claiming that it is their land.
Those islands don't happen to be the rest of the world, do they?
Well, not in this case, but we'll just have to see what the future holds. But the main reason why China is doing this is it enables them to extend their borders beyond current mainland China.
Yeah. So they quite like that.
Exactly. Hey, we got all this extra territory because there might be oil under there might be other rare minerals, etc., that they might want to claim sovereignty over or claim ownership over.
It's just nice to have your own islands too, isn't it?
Look, absolutely. Everyone wants a can. Absolutely, everyone wants a beachside resort. But essentially, Australia was traversing the South China Sea on their way to these international exercises, and they confronted the Australian naval vessels as they were trying to go through this area, and as part of that confrontation, we had we had Australia's, what are they called, the Foreign Affairs Minister, Marise Payne. She came out and said, quote, the declaration made in a submission to the United Nations on Thursday comes after. Oh my goodness, I've copied the wrong portion into the the script, Greg.
Yeah.
But essentially, Marise Payne, the Foreign Affairs Minister, said, you don't own this land.
Yeah.
You have no.
There's no.
There is no, there is nothing in international law that says you have ownership of this land and of this water. These are open and international waters, and we were conducting a legal transit of this area in order to go and conduct our legal joint military exercises. So any claim that you have to us trespassing on your property is a null and void claim.
Yeah, and it's another notch in the ladder of frustration that we're bestowing upon China at the moment, isn't it? We really can't win with them at the moment, can we? There's so many little things that we're doing to tick them off, which I think are all very good things. To be frank with you, I think that it's great that we're able to sort of say, look, you don't actually have any claim over this particular territory, and what we're doing is completely legal. You can't keep. They're bullies, aren't they, Jake? I mean, they're bullying us, really. And that's what bullying is. What bullying is a person with power or a country with power having an influence over a country without any power in a negative way, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. As we discussed prior to the show, the only sorts of bullying that you and I, as commentators, might be happy with is if. Yep. If China came up with a particularly funny nickname that was also apt and that we could all laugh about. But in this case, this form of I feel like that was an inside joke. That's probably
no. I mean, I was supposed to illustrate the point, right? Like, I mean, people are almost comically happy to go along with the fact that Donald Trump bullies people over Twitter by calling them silly names. That's sort of where we were going with that one. But it is an escalation, though.
No, exactly, and it's one of those things. Strategically, we cannot abide, China just taking over these, over sovereignty of these islands and of the sea in general, extending their borders beyond their current mainland China, because firstly, you get into all sorts of slippery slope arguments. Where does this stop? If you can make a new island, which you can do, all you need to do is pick up tons and tons and tons and tons of sand and start dumping it in a particular area, and all of a sudden you're able to make an island. It takes massive economic investment, but it's the sort of economic investment that a superpower like China has behind them and is able to produce. So if they can do that now, which they have done on the South China Sea Islands, they can just do it a little bit further and a little bit further, and all of a sudden they have the north of Australia as part of their territory. So it is one of those things that we strategically cannot let up on these sorts of things. We do need to test boundaries. It is a fraught time. It is a time when we don't necessarily want to be doing it. There was a statement from Australia. There was a declaration sent to the UN which says, quote, Australia rejects China's claim to, quote, historic rights or, quote, maritime rights and interests as established in the, quote, long course of historical practice in the South China Sea, essentially saying, we rebuke you, China. We say you do not have right to this area. Therefore, we will continue to traverse it as we have in the past.
Yes, we are angry, and we will write you a letter telling you how angry we are.
A sternly worded letter.
The old Team America letter. Now, Jake, that's what do they do at these war games? What do they do? Pretend to fire missiles?
Well, I think they do
scenarios.
Fire
I guess
missiles. They just fire missiles without warheads. So that they pick targets. There's been a couple of there's been a couple of documentaries and movies in the past that have, shown where there were joint military exercises occurring at the time that aliens came and, it just so happened that they were able to mount a response immediately, but they only had dud missiles,
Yeah, right.
So there's all sorts of cool things that they do, but it's mainly around, major military exercises today happen through coalitions of countries, so it's really important to know what is the hierarchy, how do we coordinate, how does a message or a mission go through the chain of command to be successfully implemented, etc. It's all very important stuff that we get down pat just in case we have to defend ourselves or have to do something in the future.
All right. Well, Jake, let's get that ship and let's park it back in to a port back here in Australia where there's and also speaking of war, the federal government has will record the largest budget deficit since the Second World War as it attempts to cushion the blows of the coronavirus recession. So this was the big news this week. Worst deficit since the Second World War. What on earth does that mean?
Well, it means that the children born today will have, will be paying off the deficit, off the debt that we generate during the coronavirus actions until they're age 30. So,
that's great, Jake. What's wrong with that? That's like me going out and buying all the new podcasting equipment and having my kids pay for it. That's great.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. But it is one of those things that
doesn't sound like a bad idea at all.
Well, this is absolutely the thing. I mean, we pay for, like, our future generations pay for the things of the current generations. That's nothing new. But the amount that will be required to be paid back is extraordinary, and it will need to be paid back over an extraordinary amount of time. Because essentially, the things that were announced this week, it was called the mini budget update that Josh Frydenberg announced this week. Exactly.
That's
it
cute.
was not
That's
quite
cute.
the major budget.
No.
It was the mini budget.
Was the major budget due this week, was it?
No, the major budget it was due back in May, but because of coronavirus, it was pushed back to October. So we still got a couple more, weeks and months to wait until that, the full budget is released.
Yeah.
And a lot more, calculations need to take place before that can actually happen anyway.
Yeah.
But the big thing here is that there is a lot of money being spent on a lot of programs, or on a few specific programs, in order to deliver, or in order to get us through this immediate crisis, in order to get our economy through the immediate crisis, in order to get workers through, shut down industries, shut down, individual businesses, etc. So it's all extraordinarily important stuff. But it is one of those things that we are going to be saddling the future generations with this rather extraordinary debt. At a time when we were just so close. We were so close to getting the budget back into to surplus, which invariably surplus means that you are taxing more than you deliver in programs and projects, etc. But it does mean that for the next little while, tax revenue is going to be lower.
Yeah.
While the federal treasurer Josh Frydenberg announced that the tax receipts are forecast to fall by 31.7 billion, and that's this year, and 63.9 billion next year. So that's quite massive. But yeah, essentially, we are going to be saddling the future generations with a considerable amount of debt,
great.
essentially, to dig us out of the hole we built today.
Sounds like a brilliant idea. I love it. I'm certainly going to take on that form of economic management. How does this compare, Jake, to the GFC? Because we were all well impressed with how much Kevin Rudd borrowed or printed off, whatever they do, bonds and things, to get that one. How does this one compare to that then?
Well, I got a simple answer for that. It's almost 4 times the previous record set by the Rudd government after the GFC, which was 54.5 billion. So
right.
We're likely to be in a position of 184.5 billion this financial year.
Okay. I'll do some maths on that.
It's massive.
We have had a question come in on the chat. We've got 2 comments there. Gareth from the Politics Over Coffee podcast has left us a lovely comment. He said, second live recording for today, hardcore. Absolutely, Gareth. We don't stop. We're machines.
Yeah.
We're machines who work very hard on a Sunday. And then that's it. And also, there's a question here from Rachel May. She has asked, she says, there's no such thing as a silly question. Why don't we just print more money and bring everything back to how it was pre-COVID? Like, why can't we just pay off this debt straight away by printing a whole bunch of money? Now, before you answer this, Jake, there is a little segment on the weekly with Charlie Pickering and Luke McGregor, a very funny comedian. He does one called Lukeonomics, and he did one this week about printing money and why we just can't print off a whole bunch of money. But what's your take on why we just can't print off all this money and have it be back to where it was?
Well, we can. I mean, that's one way to do it, but it's not. It's not.
Done.
It's not
Problem
the only
solved.
way.
Thanks, Rachel. Couch Podcast does it again.
It's not the only way to do it. It's not necessarily the safest way to do it, because while you can print more money, that can have a negative impact on inflation, and that can have a negative impact on things like interest rates, which we want to keep as low as humanly possible while we have this overwhelming debt. And the other side of this is that our debt is to other foreign nations or to other other people and things and investment bodies.
We have debt to things?
Well, the Reserve Bank, essentially, when the government says, hey, guys, I need money, they go to the Reserve Bank.
So
and
the Reserve Bank
says,
is the thing.
Exactly. The Reserve Bank essentially says we need to borrow X amount of money, and these foreign investors say, or these local investors say, we're willing to purchase this, and they'll purchase it, and they'll purchase it at a particular interest rate. Right now, it's really freaking low, and we want to keep it as low as possible while we pay off this debt. So yes, we can print more money, but it's not necessarily the only way to pay down this debt, and moreover, it's not necessarily the best way to pay down the debt while we are trying to keep interest rates as low as possible.
Yes, and from what I learned from that segment on Lukeonomics, yeah, absolutely. And even if it doesn't, it did. And so he also talked about basically supply and demand. So if you print off a whole bunch of money, you create demand for a whole bunch of products that you wouldn't be able to get them because everyone's demanding them. So therefore the price goes up because the supply is lower because everyone's got money. So and he also talks about the fact that taxes keep people in control, which I like. It's an easy way to keep people in control. So anyway, very interesting. Rachel did say thanks for that answer, Jake. So I presume we've given her something to think about. There
are other things that Australia...
I'll just ask her. Did we give you something to think about? Okay, great. Okay.
I love it. There are other things that certainly economists and other media commentators have been suggesting. Things one of the most prevalent ones is a reduction in taxes, which are already being forecast as being implemented relatively soon. They already agreed.
They're rushing them through.
But at the same time, an increase to the GST. So that hasn't been done since the GST was implemented. 20 odd years ago?
Had its birthday a few weeks ago.
Exactly, by John Howard. But look, it is one of those things that we're probably going to have to do a number of things over a number of decades in order to pay down this debt, and we'll just have to see. The other thing I was going to say that Josh Frydenberg did announce at that mini budget update.
He's an alien.
Is that the unemployment is likely to rise to 9.25% in the December quarter, which is massive.
It's huge.
Currently at around 7.4%, which is the official jobless rate, which of course ignores people on JobKeeper. That are currently working 0 hours, and people who have given up looking for work. I've given it up. But the things that were instated as part of the coronavirus, where job seekers did not have to go and apply for a certain number of jobs each week, they are about to be reinstated. So a lot of those job seekers will start seeking jobs again. Those people who have disconnected from the workforce, they will start looking for jobs properly again.
And we've seen that they're able to be flexible with these particular programs that they've got in place, JobKeeper and JobSeeker. So there were a couple of changes to that we spoke about last week. But it's good. It's good to know that if that's what the employment rate is going to be towards the end of the year, that fingers crossed that if people are needing that money towards Christmas and to sort of have it, maybe the pandemic's wrapping itself up or something like that. Hopefully, there's some flexibility around those particular programs so that people can have an enjoyable sort of end of year, because heaven knows we're going to need a fresh start to 2021, aren't we, Jake?
A lot of the announcements this week from the Prime Minister and the Treasurer were that these programs are going to scale back significantly on essentially January 1st.
Yes.
So it'll be, Happy New Year. I can't afford to pay my rent.
No, that's right. Look, hey, we'll do our bit, Jake. We'll donate some streamers and some of those poppers to people who maybe can't afford to be able to celebrate their New Year's Eve the way that they'd want to. I'm sure there'll be some 2021 glasses going around. I don't know how that'll look. The one will cover your eye. Anyway, speaking of...
It'll look like a side eyebrow.
Speaking of...
Or a really cool scar.
Speaking of Rooster one day, feather duster the next. Tony Abbott.
He's a funny one. He's come out this week, and I generally speaking, I enjoy listening to Tony Abbott. He is a very measured speaker. Sometimes he thinks too much without speaking, such as the interview that was. Do
you mean speaks too much? Oh, I see. No. Got it. Very funny.
There's this interview between was it David Spears and Tony Abbott?
I don't think it was Dave. It might have been. I think it was more of a one of those talk show type hosts. I think I don't know, but anyway, yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
He was asked a question, and Tony Abbott is vociferously shaking his head but not saying anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes.
Might have been David Spears. Yeah.
It might have been. Yeah. Anyway, it's a long time ago. But yes, Tony Abbott has spoken out this week in a series of interviews that he was giving with the IPA, the Institute for Public Affairs. And he suggested that MPs, Australian MPs and top bureaucrats should share in the pain of COVID-19 recession and take a temporary 20% pay cut.
Yes, right. That's quite a hefty pay cut, Jake.
It is. He was specifically pointing out people earning above $150,000 a year in the public service.
Yes.
And he has an interesting quote, which I quite like. He said, quote, "I'm not normally a big fan of the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, but as I understand it, members of Parliament and senior public servants in New Zealand have taken a 20% pay cut for 6 months," which is a big thing. There are a couple of other things that we could probably do. We could probably rescind the what is it called, pension for former prime ministers. That might be one thing that we could do to reduce the burden on the budget. That would of course impact Tony Abbott specifically and other former politicians, but generally speaking, that's one measure that we could.
He can live off onions anyway, so I wouldn't panic too much.
He can. Great breath.
Yeah. Just cut to the chase and get right in there. Now, it is interesting. Look, one of the little. It's a bit of a side note, but I find it interesting that he has to preface it, any conversation about Jacinda Ardern by saying, "I'm not normally a big fan of the New Zealand Prime Minister. However, blah 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 blah." Like, what does he even have to say that?
Well, I think
she's just steered her country through. She's democratically elected in. She's wonderful. She's lovely. I don't understand.
I'll tell you exactly why. It's because he was in a discussion with the Institute for Public Affairs, which is a, reasonably right-wing think tank.
Yeah.
And I suppose if he's going to discuss a populist leader who is, relatively left-leaning, it's probably important that if he's going to show praise, he temper that praise prior to giving it.
Yeah, maybe. But gosh. I mean, they've basically been able to declare that they eradicated corona. I just don't understand why he has to preface it by saying, "Oh, I'm not normally a fan." It's like, gosh, just get over yourself. Anyway.
I agree.
I'm sure she's a tremendous fan of Tony Abbott's. Maybe it goes both ways.
I'd say you're right.
Now, Jake, we've been talking about JobSeeker and JobKeeper. You've gone one up on that, and you've called it Job Tweaker.
Yes, they're being job tweakers this week.
Right, so they're tweaking the jobs, and they're tweaking the job seeker, the job keeper one. Now, this is a lot of people are receiving this. We spoke to Gareth and Ollie again on the Politics Over Coffee podcast. I think both of them are either getting job keeper or job seeker. I know that they're in lockdown as well. It's really impacting on a lot of people. We know that it disproportionately affects women, particularly women in a casual workforce. They obviously are overrepresented in the casual workforce, temporary workforce, so they're being hugely impacted on this, which obviously has a huge impact on other aspects of life as well. All sorts of things are going on. They've gotten rid of child keeper. I don't know what they call it. Child carer. They got rid of that one, and now they're doing some more tweaks.
They are. The Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Treasurer Josh Frydenberg announced this week that millions of workers will keep receiving the JobKeeper wage subsidy until the end of March in a dramatic extension of the $70 billion program under a
end of March?
So it was
next year.
Yeah.
Well,
so
obviously not this year, Greg, but yeah, like
it was only going until September. So they've extended it significantly.
Right. Yeah, that's huge.
There have been tweaks, hence the job tweaker reference. For example, JobKeeper will be reduced from $1,500 a fortnight to I think it's $1,100 ish. And there's now a full-time JobKeeper and a part-time JobKeeper, so they're two different schemes.
Yep.
Job Seeker is being reduced to $1,100 a fortnight. So there are a number of cuts and changes that have occurred in order to essentially. Firstly, means test things, so ensure that people aren't being overpaid for work that they wouldn't, essentially overpaid for, money that they would not have normally received as part of their normal wage.
Right.
But also, means testing things. I think I just said means testing twice, but they'll means test. And they will also bring things back into line in order to encourage people to go back to work, in order to encourage people to look for jobs, and in order to encourage the economy to continue ticking away. But they've also introduced a secondary program, which was the not job seeker, not job keeper, job
builder. Creator.
Builder. That's the one. Job creator. It's something like that. But essentially, it's a job training program. So all of this is around essentially, we're going to, if you are in a secure job, forgetting the pandemic, if you're in a secure job that industry that your workplace is going to exist after the pandemic restrictions are lifted, then we're going to, pay to keep you around, pay to keep you essentially there and in place so that once that workplace is able to open back up, we'll get you back in and we'll exactly. So that's JobKeeper. Job Seeker is all about, hey, you've been laid off or you were laid off prior to the pandemic. We're going to make sure that you can survive, make sure that you're pumping money into the economy as much as humanly possible. And then you've got for those people who perhaps were in an industry or were in a job situation that potentially was untenable either currently or into the future. They had that job builder program. I think that's the name of it. But essentially that enabled people to go into training in order to upskill for a new profession. So that there were a number of schemes to
free courses and things. Yeah,
exactly. There are a number of schemes as well to get apprentices into trades. Look, the programs were really about encouraging people into workforce or encouraging people to engage in new types of work. And they've tried to look. I think the government has really tried to look at what are the industries of the future, and how can we ensure that we're getting as many people as possible into those industries of the future today.
Absolutely. Working for Tesla seems like a good option. Now,
Yeah.
so the details of that are from October, the payments for people working 20 or more hours a week will be cut from $750 a week to $600 a week. For people working fewer than 20 hours, the payment will be cut to $375 a week, which is $750 a fortnight. From January, the payment is set to drop again to $500 a week, $1,000 a fortnight for people working more than 20 hours, and to $325 or $650 a fortnight for people working less. This is getting more confusing than the rules surrounding what you can and can't do in New South Wales. Now, so hopefully that is a bit of a lifeline for those people who really, really need it. And kudos to the president. Kudos to the Prime Minister for kudos to the Prime Minister for and their government for I think I feel like they've listened to the Australian people, and they've certainly listened to the opposition, and they're certainly listening to what needs to happen out there in the real world with people being really, really affected. And Tony Abbott's got a point, right? Not everyone is as lucky as what public servants are to have a sustainable job, to be able to keep their job. We spoke on the show a little while ago about people having, pay cuts, and we know that Gladys Berejiklian, the New South Wales Premier, said that, public servants in New South Wales were going to get a pay cut. Bit of a fuss about that one. I don't think that that's going to happen anymore. That there was a pay freeze, it was, to word it politically correctly. So it was a bit of a pay freeze. Look, in all honesty, I was kind of pro the pay freeze. It didn't really bother me too much. It would have obviously put a bit of a dampener on my lifestyle a little bit, but to do my bit would have felt good as well, and knowing that
agree.
I suppose it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because they talk about people who never got coronavirus having a bit of guilt surrounding that, and if they were a family member who never got it, but other family members didn't die and all that sort of stuff, they have a bit of guilt around it. I suppose from my perspective, I actually have a bit of guilt around the fact that I've got this job that's keeping me employed. That's I haven't suffered at all.
It's called survivor's guilt. Yeah, it's a very well-known phenomenon, particularly experienced in workplaces where, for example, a bunch of people go and one or two people stay, and they feel a certain amount of, again, survivor's guilt, essentially for them getting to keep it. Why did they get to keep it and they and others didn't? Why are we being able to maintain a reasonable, if not quite good income, while others are not,
and really suffering too.
The same. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really suffering. Yep. Okay. Well, if you've got any ideas for how I can overcome my survivor's guilt, please email us at thepouchofthepodcast@gmail.com. Always open to suggestions about where I could donate money or donate time or, get someone on the show. Hey, sounds good to me. Sounds good 100%. To me. 100%. Yep. Not 99?
No, I'm an all-in sort of guy.
No. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Greg.
We got a few things to do today, man. We got a few things to do, so we're going to wrap that up.
Paint my nails. Got to brush my hair.
You got to work on your legs.
Well, no, actually, my legs are perfect.
But you've got to maintain that perfection, don't you?
Yeah. 10K should be fine.
A 10K sit?
No, a 10K run.
10,000 hours of sitting.
Yep. I'm very good at it.
10,000 minutes. All right, Jake. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. That was really good. It was a great show. Again, we were on the. I suppose we did a crossover episode with Gareth and Ollie from Politics Over Coffee. So please check out their podcast. If they at least get a little bit of a boost from us promoting them, then hopefully we get them back on the show, because it was a terrific discussion. How did you feel about the discussion, Jake? Now that they're no longer here, how did you really feel about it?
Yeah, let's talk about them behind their backs. Look, no, I thought it was a really interesting discussion. A lot of things that I hadn't considered as well, that they raised, particularly around the way that the American government and governance is run. So yeah, fascinating discussion. Really interesting gentleman to chat with. So it was a great chat today, and certainly look forward to chatting with him again in the future.
Well, Gareth just sent us a message saying he's actually listening right now. So,
Should I say something mean?
Like you said something nice. Please check him out at Politics Over Coffee. Thanks for checking us out. And thanks for checking out Jake's legs.
Can't see him.
Can't say no, but I mean, gosh, we can imagine when you say perfect. I can imagine them. Jake, once people have finished imagining your legs, what would you like them to do?
Probably a 3-prong attack. Squats followed by calf raises and finish off with some lunge jumps. No, if they could rate, review, and subscribe, that would be a great help to us. Any reviewing and rating gives us visibility in all of the podcast aggregators.
Absolutely, we do love those podcast aggregators.
We do love.
If you want to share that love. If you want to share that love, you can do so by telling your friends, families, and foes to head to thebachelorpodcast.com where they can choose their favorite podcast player of choice and subscribe that way. Jake. Thanks for chatting with me today, man. And enjoy the rest of your day. Look at that. You said finish at 11:10 and it's 11:11. Look at that.
I'm going to be fine. See you guys.
All right. See ya. Bye, everyone.